Alright, hello everybody. So today we're gonna do something a little different. I think it's important for a lot of people to understand how they can actually become great manifestors. So the first part of this will be me reading this part of this book that is very interesting. I invite you all to buy it. However, I know some of you don't like to read, so I just read it out to you, and then we are going to be able to talk about the points and discuss what is going on and how you can actually achieve what he's talking about in a much easier way. And without further ado, I'm just going to start the recording that I did, yes, before, so the quality hopefully will be better. And let's see what you think afterwards. I hope you enjoy it. Trans-Surfing by Vadim Zeeland. It's a great book. And one of the first quotes in this book says that if you don't control reality, reality will control you. So the book starts saying reality in an unfamiliar guise. Since time immemorial, people have understood that the world behaves in a dual manner. On the one hand, everything that happens on the material level is more or less clear and can be explained from the point of view of the laws of natural science. On the other hand, when we encounter phenomena originating in the subtle planes, these laws are no longer applicable. Why has not it ever been possible to unite different manifestations of reality into a single knowledge system? Strangely, it is as if the world were playing hide and seek with us, not wanting to reveal its true essence. As soon as scientists discover a new law to explain one phenomenon, another appears to contradict it. This pursuit of truth is as elusive as a shadow and will go on forever. The interesting thing is that the world does not hide its true face. It willingly takes on whatever guise we attribute to it. This is clearly evident in all branches of science. For example, if you imagine that a microcosm consists of particles, then there will be no shortage of experiments to support this supposition. If you assume that the microcosm is not a particle, but an electromagnetic wave, the world won't object and will readily manifest itself accordingly. You could ask the world whether it consisted of solid matter with just the same success. It would answer yes. Or maybe it consists of energy. Again, it will answer in the affirmative. But as we know, microparticles in a vacuum are constantly being created and annihilated as energy is transformed into matter and vice versa. It would be futile to ask the world what came first, matter or consciousness. It would change its mask just as cunningly, revealing to us whatever side of the world we wished to see. Representatives of various teachings argue with each other, each trying to prove an opposing point of view But reality will always pass a dispassionate verdict because, in essence, they are all right. The world agrees with us and dodges us at the same time. In other words, it acts like a mirror. It literally reflects all of our notions of reality, whatever they happen to be. So, where does that leave us? If the world always agrees with what we think about it, at the same time constantly evading a direct answer, are not all our attempts to explain the nature of reality in vain? The fact is, everything is much simpler than that. There is no point in searching for an absolute truth in individual manifestations of a multifaceted reality. We just have to accept the fact that reality has a mirror, has two aspects: a physical aspect, which you can touch, and a metaphysical aspect, which lies beyond the limits of perception and yet is no less objective in nature. At the present time, science deals with the side of life that is reflected in the mirror, whereas esotericism tries to look at life outside the mirror. The entire debate basically boils down to a difference in focus. So, what exactly does lie on the other side of the mirror? Transurfing, like any esoteric teaching, offers one of many possible answers to this question. On the other side of the mirror glass, there lies the variance space, an information structure that stores the scripts to all possible events. The number of variants is infinite, as infinite as the number of possible positions of a single dot on a grid. The variance space is a record of everything that ever was and everything that will ever be. This also means that access to the variance space provides the opportunity for clairvoyance. The only setback is that because the number of variants is infinite, one can see events that will not be realized in physical reality. This is why clairvoyants often make mistakes in their forecasts. In the variance space, you can see things that have never happened, as well as things that will never actually happen. In this sense, you may rest assured no one can truly know your future because no one can determine which potential version of it will ultimately be played out on the material plane. Similarly, there is no guarantee that what you see in a dream is the actual sector of the variance space that will be embodied in reality. This is wonderful news. If the future is not predetermined, there is always reason to hope for the best possible outcome. The task of transurfing is not to look regretfully at the past or even to peer apprehensively into a tomorrow which is yet to come, but to shape intentionally your own reality. It might seem difficult to believe. Just where is the variance space? How can this be possible? From the point of view of our three-dimensional perception of the world, the variance space is everywhere and at the same time nowhere. It could lie beyond the visible universe or it could be in your own coffee cup. One thing is for certain, it is not in the third dimension. Paradoxically, we visit the variant space every night. Our dreams are not illusions in the usual sense of the word. People lightheartedly attribute their dreams to the realm of fantasy, not suspecting that they reflect real events which might have occurred in the past or might still occur in the future. We know that people sometimes see images in dreams that do not seem to originate in this world, or at least it is quite clear that the dreamer can't have seen their dream content in real life. If a dream is our brain's way of imitating reality, where do all these extraordinary pictures and narratives come from? If we roughly attribute all conscious aspects of the human psyche to the mind and all its subconscious aspects to the soul, then we could say that a dream is the soul's flight through the variance space. The mind does not imagine dreams, it actually sees them. The soul has direct access to the information field, where all scripts and set designs are permanently stored like frames on a film strip. The phenomenon of time only manifests when the film strip is moving. The mind acts as an observer and ideas generator. Memory is also directly related to the variance space. It has already been proved that the brain is not physically capable of storing all the information a person accumulates during their lifetime. So, how does the brain remember things? The brain does not store the information itself. It stores something akin to an address to where the data is held in the variance space. The reason people don't remember their past lives is that when the physical body dies, those addresses are lost. Under certain conditions, however, the address files can be restored. The mind is not capable of creating anything fundamentally new. It simply constructs a new version of a house from old building blocks. The material for any scientific discovery or masterpiece of art comes from the variance space and is received by the mind through the heart. Clairvoyance and intuitive knowledge come from the same place. A discovery in science, Einstein wrote, is not accomplished in any logical way. It only takes on logical form afterwards in the course of exposition. A discovery, even the very smallest, is always an insight. The solution comes from outside, as unexpectedly as if someone had whispered it in your ear. This concept of the variance space should not be confused with the well-known concept of a common information field through which data can be transferred from one object to another. The variance space is a stationary matrix, a structure that determines everything that can potentially take place in our world. When we accept the simultaneous existence of two aspects of reality, the physical and the metaphysical, then our picture of the world becomes much clearer. When these two aspects of reality come into contact on the surface of the mirror, phenomena arise that are usually attributed either to the paranormal or unexplained mysteries. Corpuscular wave dualism, in which a microscopic object is perceived as either a wave or a particle, is a vivid example of these two realities coming into contact with one another. However, human beings are the most incredible example of this phenomenon, living creatures who simultaneously combine the material and the spiritual. In a sense, we are living on the surface of a giant dual mirror, on one side of which lies our material universe, and on the other stretches the black infinity of the variance space. Finding ourselves in this unique position, it would be, at the very least, short-sighted to confine ourselves to living within the confines of the conventional worldview, making use of just one aspect of reality, the physical aspect. Given the right conditions, human thought energy is capable of materializing any sector of the variance space in the state of being referred to in the context of transurfing as the unity of heart and mind. An unfathomable magical power is born, the power of outer intention. Everything that is customarily attributed to magic is connected to outer intention. This is the power the ancient mages used to erect the Egyptian pyramids and create other miracles. Intention is referred to as outer because it exists external to the individual human being and, as a result, lies beyond the mind's control. That said, people are capable of gaining access to it in certain states of consciousness. Anyone who subordinates their will to this powerful force becomes capable of incredible things. However, in the contemporary world, most people have long lost the skills honed by the inhabitants of ancient civilizations like Atlantis. Fragments of ancient knowledge have been preserved to the present day in the form of scattered esoteric teachings and practices, but it is quite difficult to apply this kind of knowledge in everyday life. Despite the intricacy of its practical realization, the secret to mastering outer intention is fairly simple. The answer to the enigma lies in the phenomenon known as lucid dreaming. In an ordinary dreaming state, events develop independently of the mind's will. Until the dreamer becomes conscious of the fact that they are dreaming, they are not able to control what happens. The dreamer is totally under the power of non-lucid dreaming, in which the dream just happens to them. The moment the dreamer becomes conscious of the fact that it is all just a dream, they discover that they have amazing abilities. The impossible is possible in a lucid dream. You can control events in the dream by the power of intention and do incredible things like fly. The ability to control one's dream is acquired the moment a person becomes conscious of himself or herself in the dream world comparative to physical reality. At this stage of awareness, the dreamer has their physical reality as a reference point to which they can return the moment they wake up. Physical reality, in turn, is like a non-lucid dream in waking. The dreamer is under the power of circumstance, and life just happens. They don't remember their past lives, and so they have no reference point relative to which they could rise to the next level of awareness. Yet, not all is lost. There is an alternative method in transurfing, which you can use to get outer intention to work. People are capable of creating their own reality, but this means following certain rules. The ordinary human mind tries to influence the reflection in the mirror, but is unsuccessful. It is the image itself that has to be changed, and the image is created by the focus and nature of a person's thoughts. Desire alone is not enough to bring what you want into reality. The image or thought form on one side of the mirror has to coincide with certain parameters of the corresponding sector of the variance space located on the other side of the mirror. But that is not all. You have to know how to communicate with the mirror, which, it has to be said, is most strange and complex. Imagine this unusual scenario. You are standing in front of a mirror, but there is nothing in the reflection, just emptiness. The image gradually begins to appear, but only after some time, as in a photograph that is being developed. At some point, you begin to smile, but the mirror still reflects the former serious expression on your face. This is exactly how the mirror of the variance space works, only the delay factor is incomparably greater, and therefore the changes that take place cannot be clearly perceived. Material realization is inert, but if you fulfill certain conditions, a new reflection will appear, which means that a dream can become a reality. Your thought form acts like an existing physical object that is standing in front of a mirror. Your reflection, which has no material substance, is imaginary, metaphysical, and at the same time as real as the form itself. Unlike the scenario with an ordinary mirror, in transurfing, the material world is the reflection. The images in it, which are served by the intention and thoughts of God, as well as all living beings, are His manifestation. The variance space is a kind of matrix, a template for cutting and sewing, as well as a format for the fashion show, the movement of all matter. It stores information about what should happen in the material world and how. Each possible variation of potential reality represents a different sector of the variant space which contains scripts and set designs for the trajectory and form of moving matter. In other words, the sector determines in each individual case what should happen and what that should look like. Therefore, the mirror divides the world into two halves, the actual and the imaginary. Everything that acquires material form resides in the actual half and unfolds in accordance with the laws of natural science. Science and the ordinary perception of the world deal only with what happens in reality. By reality, it is generally accepted to mean everything that can be observed and directly influenced. When we reject the metaphysical side of reality and only take into account the material world, the activities of all living beings, including man, are reduced to primitive movements within the confines of internal intention. Internal intention helps us achieve our goal by means of directly influencing the world around us. In order to achieve something, we have to take certain steps. We push, shove, elbow our way ahead, and generally carry out a specific type of work. Material reality instantly responds to direct action, which creates the illusion that results can only be achieved by direct influence. However, in the context of the material world, the range of goals that are realistically achievable using this approach is greatly narrowed. Here, we can only rely on what is already available to us. Everything comes down to material resources, which as a rule are never enough and which are severely limited. In this world, everything is imbued with the spirit of rivalry. There are just too many people wanting to achieve the same thing. Of course, within the limits of internal intention, there really is not enough. So, where can we find the conditions and circumstances necessary to achieve our goals? The answer is only in the variance space. On the other side of the mirror, everything exists in abundance and there is no competition. None of the products is in stock, but the beauty of it is that you can choose anything at all, as if from a catalog, and place an order for what you want. Sooner or later, your order will be delivered and you will not even have to pay for it. You just have to fulfill certain straightforward conditions, and that's it. Sounds like a fairy tale. Not at all. It is more than realistic. Thought energy never disappears without trace. It is capable of materializing any sector of the variant space whose characteristics correspond to the quality of the thought waves being emitted. It only appears to us as if everything in the world were a result of interaction between material objects. Equally important here is the role played by processes which occur on the subtle planes when virtual variants of potential reality become embodied in physical reality. The causal relationships involved in subtle processes cannot always be perceived, and yet together they comprise the better half of reality. The physical embodiment of sectors within the variant space takes place, as a rule, irrespective of individual will, since people so rarely use thought and energy in a purposeful way, to say nothing of less intellectually developed beings. A person who is firmly grounded in the reality of life is like a shopper who wanders along empty shelves in a store, stretching up to reach for goods which are already marked sold. There are only poor quality products left, and even those are expensive. Instead of just looking at the catalog and placing an order, they rush about randomly, searching for things, waiting in long queues, desperately struggling to squeeze through the crowd and getting involved in conflicts with the shopkeepers and other customers. As a result, they don't get what they want and end up with more problems than they started with. Meanwhile, this grim reality germinates in that person's consciousness and gradually ends up materializing into reality. All living beings create a layer of their personal world with their actions on the one hand and their thoughts on the other. All these individual layers arrange themselves one on top of the other as every living being contributes to the creation of the wider reality. Each layer is made up of a specific set of conditions and circumstances which produce a person's lifestyle. The individual conditions of each person's life differ. They may be favorable or unfavorable, comfortable or severe, inviting or aggressive. Naturally, the environment in which a person is born bears some significance. Yet, how a person's life develops will depend for the most part on that person's relationship to themselves and their environment. A person's attitude to life is largely determined by subsequent changes in lifestyle. The sector scripts and set designs that most correspond to the focus and quality of a person's thoughts are those which will ultimately be made manifest in material reality. Two factors play a part in the process of creating an individual layer: internal intention on one side of the mirror and outer intention on the other. People can influence objects in the material world through action. With their thoughts, they bring into physical reality things which are not yet there. When a person is convinced that all the best of this world has already sold out, their shelves will remain empty. When they think that buying a high quality item will mean standing in a huge queue and then parting with a large sum of money, then that is exactly what will happen. If a person's expectations are pessimistic and riddled with doubt, then they will undoubtedly be justified. If a person expects to meet with an unfriendly environment, their misgivings will come true. Yet, all a person has to do is embrace the innocent thought that the world has saved the best for them, and for some reason, that works as well. That is how people shape the layer of their personal world with the power of thought. For the most part, though, people don't understand how it all works. People try to make everything exactly how I want it. For the most part, by applying the basic principle of wherever I turn, that's where I'll go, and wherever I put my foot on the gas, that's where I'll make a breakthrough. Yet, for some reason, the world does not want to yield to this principle. What is more, when a person turns in one direction, life carries them off in quite another. It makes you think, given that reality behaves in such a strange manner, perhaps we should take a different approach. What if life works in accordance with completely different laws? Yet people do not want to stop and look around, so they continue to push hard ahead. The result of this kind of creativity is that you end up with a world layer in which nothing is how I want it to be. In fact, quite a lot turns out just as I didn't want it to. How strange, moody, and unaccommodating reality is. One often gets the feeling that the world is doing it out of spite. Trouble seems to be drawn to us by some inexplicable magnetic force. Our fears are realized and our worst expectations justified. We are persistently followed by the very things to which we are adverse, and so try to avoid. Why? The theory of transurfing explains why it often turns out that you get what you didn't want, especially if you desperately didn't want it. Is there something you hate or fear with all your heart? Outer intention will give it to you in abundance. The energy of thoughts, which are born from the unity of heart and mind, transform potential into reality. In other words, the sector in the variance space that corresponds to the quality of our thought waves can be materialized if the feelings of the heart are one with the thoughts of the mind. This is not the only reason our worst expectations are realized. A problem-free life is actually the norm. Everything in life should develop smoothly if you go with the variance flow and do not upset the balance. Nature does not like wasting energy and has no desire to create intrigue. Unfortunate circumstances and events occur as a result of excess potential, which introduces an element of distortion into the energetic environment. Dependent relationships only exacerbate the problem. Excess potential arises when some quality or another is attributed excessive, inflated importance. Dependent relationships are created when people begin to compare themselves, to compartmentalize and set conditions like, if you do that, then I'll do this. Excess potential is not necessarily a problem as long as the distorted evaluation exists relative only to itself. As soon as the artificially elevated evaluation of one object is placed in comparative relationship to another, polarization crops up, which creates a wind of balancing forces. Balancing forces try to neutralize the polarization, and in the majority of cases, their impact is focused on the persons creating it. These are examples of unconditional potential. I love you. I love myself. I hate you. I don't like myself. I am good. You're bad. These judgments are self-sufficient. They are not based on comparison or contradiction. Here are some examples of potentials built on dependent relationships. I love you provided that you love me. I love myself because I'm better than the rest of you. You are bad because I am better than you. I'm good because you're bad. I do not like myself because I am worse than anyone else. You repulse me because you are not like me. There is a huge difference between the first group and the second. Value judgments based on comparison create polarization. Balancing forces try to neutralize the heterogeneity by the collision of opposites. It is exactly the same as when the opposite poles of a magnet attract. This is why trouble creeps into our lives so intrusively, as if on purpose. For example, seemingly incompatible individuals unite as a married couple as if they were trying to punish one another. In any team, there will always be that one person you find particularly irritating. Murphy's Law, or what we would call Sod's Law, is the same principle. Polarization distorts the energetic environment and generates vortices of balancing forces, as a result of which reality is poorly reflected, as if in a distorting mirror. People do not seem to understand that the problem has arisen because of something that is upsetting the balance, and so they decide to fight the outside world rather than eliminating the source of polarization. All it really takes is to fulfill the basic rule of transurfing. Give yourself permission to be yourself and allow others to be different. You have to let the world go completely wherever it likes. Loosen your grip. The more you insist on your own desires and claims, the stronger the magnet that attracts the opposite. This is what happens literally. You grab the world by the throat, and so it fights back, trying to free itself. There is no point in pushing and demanding. That only exacerbates the situation even more. Instead, the rule of transurfing requires that you consciously change your attitude toward the situation. The fact that Sod's Law even exists is a bit odd, don't you think? Why should the world behave in such a bitchy manner? Or does it all come down to speculation and prejudice? There is no getting away from it. The tendency does exist. Fortunately, the transurfing model not only reveals the reason for this pattern, it explains how it can be avoided. The rule of transurfing works flawlessly, and anyone who follows this rule will be freed from experiencing the kinds of problems that seem to appear in our lives without any particular reason. All you have to do is loosen your grip. Stop grabbing life by the throat, and you will find it instantly becomes friendly and willing. Those who don't let go will carry on like a magnet, attracting the opposite. The law of bad luck is not the only thing. The moment that opposites meet, their opposition strives to intensify further. The well-known law of the unity of conflict of opposites, whose title is self-explanatory, is now basic textbook known knowledge. Just like the Volga flows into the Caspian Sea, the Mississippi into the Gulf of Mexico. But it's not quite that simple. Ask yourself, why should this law even exist? The reason for the ubiquitous union of opposites is clear. By making them collide, balancing forces restore equilibrium. So why are opposing elements in a constant state of conflict? You would think it would be the opposite. They collide, neutralize each other, and calm down. But no, opposites go on provoking each other until they get the opportunity to fight. Unless the bully is dragged away, the fight will go on forever. There's no shortage of examples. You know that life sometimes gets on your nerves a bit. Everyone experiences this in his or her own way, to varying degrees. Basically, the essence is this: if right now there is something that is capable of throwing you off balance, it will appear as if to spite you. This is what happens. If you are anxious, worried, or down about something, your nerves will be tense, even just a little. Then, as if it were directly connected, a clown appears and starts jumping around and rattling on, winding you up even more. You get even more irritated, and the clown jumps about even more frantically. There are many ways of increasing your tension. For example, you are in a hurry and afraid you're going to be late. The clown claps and rubs its hand and cries, "Let's go!" From this moment on, everything starts to go against you. People block your way, they stride along with decorum, but you still cannot pass them. You rush to get through a door, but there is literally a queue forming of the laziest people in the world who are barely placing one foot in front of the other. The cars on the road are doing the same thing. It is as if they have all agreed beforehand to get in your way. Of course, some things can be put down to perception. When you are in a hurry, the rest of the world seems to slow down. But the real telltale signs are when the lift breaks down, the bus is late, and there's a traffic jam. In all this, there is some ill-intentioned objective tendency. I could cite other examples. If you are concerned about something intense, people around you will always do exactly what irritates you, and they seem to know to do it now when you would most like to be left alone. The children start misbehaving although they were fine before. Someone sitting next to you starts slurping and swallowing loudly. Various individuals get under your feet and pressure you with their problems. Interference importunately creeps in everywhere. If you wait impatiently, you will wait for ages. If there is someone you particularly do not want to see, they will appear, and so on. The more irritated you become, the more the external pressure intensifies. The more tense you are, the more people will get to you. The interesting thing is that they are not actually doing it deliberately. It would never occur to them that they might be bothering someone. So why this behavior? There are all sorts of gray areas in the psychology of the subconscious. However, strange it might sound, in the majority of cases people are driven by unconscious motives. What is even more interesting is that the driving force which shapes our unconscious motives originates in the external world, not in the human psyche. This force comes from pendulums, unseen but very real energy informational entities which are created by thought energy. We talked a lot about pendulums in the first book on transurfing. Pendulums can always be found in places where they can survive on conflict energy. It is not that these beings are capable of plotting anything or realizing a consciousness intention. Pendulums are like leeches. They sense polarization as in homogeneity or lumpiness in the energy field and feed by sucking on it, and that's not the worst of it. What is so horrific that rather than just absorbing conflict energy, they somehow push people to behave in such a way that they give out even more of the same type of energy. They do everything possible to make sure that the source of energy is spilling over. Pendulums pull at people with invisible threads as if they were puppets, and they obey. How precisely pendulums influence people's motives is not yet clear, but they are extremely good at it. Pendulums cannot access clear consciousness, but they don't need to. The subconscious is quite enough. To one degree or another, everyone is partially asleep in waking life. We often do something in a laid-back manner on autopilot, without being aware of it, without saying to ourselves, in this moment I am awake and am aware of what I'm doing, why I am doing it, and how. Our level of active awareness is particularly low when we are at home or when we find ourselves in a crowd. In a domestic setting, the need for heightened self-control is relatively minor, and so we are relaxed, almost dropping off. In the external world, within a close circle of friends, our awareness is more alert and working on self-control. In large crowds, a person's actions are spontaneous but also fall into strong correlation with the general urges of the collective. To illustrate how pendulum works, let's take the simple example of a passerby who you follow and then overtake. Just as you intend to step to the side to walk past, the pedestrian takes a spontaneous step to the side as if deliberately blocking your way. You try and pass them on the other side, but the pedestrian automatically veers to that direction. What causes the passerby to change direction? They can't see you, and why should they care that you want to pass by? Perhaps the pedestrian senses someone approaching from behind and instinctively stops his or her rival from passing and getting ahead? This explanation would seem viable, but still, that's not it. In nature, if you think in terms of instinct, rivalry is always expressed in situations where both parties are stood facing each other. What makes the pedestrian veer to one side in the pendulum? People just walk without thinking about where they're placing their feet or how to keep a perfectly straight line. In this sense, people are asleep, and so from time to time the line of their steps spontaneously deviates to one side or another. The motivation, the choice to move in one direction or another, originates in the subconscious, which in that moment is not being controlled by the mind, which means it is open to the pendulum. Then you come along and try to overtake the pedestrian in front of you. Essentially, this is a conflict, albeit a very meager one. The pendulum's objective is to increase the energy of conflict, and so it nudges the pedestrian to take an involuntary step to one side to block your way, aggravating the situation further. You cannot say that the pendulum is acting deliberately because it is not capable of conscious intention. Balancing forces act just as unconsciously. I should emphasize that we are talking about certain processes of which the precise mechanism is still unclear and not about the rational behavior of conscious beings. We are simply noting individual tendencies and patterns in the energy informational world. There is no point in analyzing what kind of pendulum is working in this kind of situation, where it comes from, how it manages to do what it does, and what is really happening on an energetic level. We would never get to the bottom of it. Only one main conclusion concerns us here. When balancing forces make opposites collide, the pendulums do everything to inflame the energy of rising conflict. That is the law of the pendulum. Endless pendulum battles, be they domestic arguments or armed conflicts, all run according to this law. When opposition arises, events will always develop to intensify the conflict, and that includes temporary and feigned attempts at reconciliation. When the pendulum law is at play, common sense has no weight at all. This is why very often common sense seems to have no bearing on the actions of individuals or states. In conflict situations, a person's motives come under the pendulum's power. That is why when you look back on how you have behaved in the past, you often find yourselves thinking how strange it all was and wondering what on earth happened to your common sense. You ask yourself, what could have possessed me to do such a thing? The answer is that we sometimes come from the subconscious without being fully aware of what we are doing. It is only later, when our consciousness is free of external influence, that events can be evaluated more objectively. People who have been close start to argue and then part ways because they think they are incompatible, despite the fact that they have shared many happy times together when everything was wonderful between them. All of a sudden, a person changes and their behavior becomes hostile. They are not like how they used to be, even in relatively recent times. Sounds familiar, right? In reality, it is not a matter of one partner or the other has changed. The reason one person behaves in a manner their partner finds totally unacceptable is because the pendulum is forcing them to behave that way. The pendulum controls the subconscious motivations of people who find themselves in a confrontation. The control is designed to increase conflict energy. Generally, people are unaware of what pushes them to go on the offensive. A person might behave totally illogically or abnormally. This effect is quite evident in inexplicably brutal crimes. Later, when they are sitting in the dock, the offender recalls their crime in horror, wondering, what on earth came over me? They are not lying either. Often the crime is a complete surprise to the perpetrator, who remembers what they did as if it were some terrible nightmare. The sleep is particularly deep when a person's attention falls into a snare. In certain communities, like in the army, a club or sect, an environment is created which supports a certain type of thinking and behavioral stereotypes. This lulls a person to sleep, which makes their subconscious susceptible to the zombifying influence of the pendulum. Then certain things happen which would seem utterly incomprehensible to any objective observer. Why do people kill others so viciously simply because they worship different gods? They're not getting in anyone else's way. People suffer deprivations of war and die in dozens, the hundreds, thousands, and millions. Where is the preservation instinct? Fighting for the sake of wealth and land is understandable, but how do you explain killing for the sake of one's faith? The idea of peace is close to everybody's heart, and yet the wars continue. The idea of a one God is quite clear. The notions of goodness, justice, equality, one could go on forever, are the same. Everyone understands, but common sense doesn't seem to work, and evil triumphs. Where does the evil come from? The pendulum is the universal source of evil. In a confrontational situation involving anything or anyone, you don't have to observe for long before it becomes obvious that events are moving towards an increase of conflictual energy. If the battle ceases, then it will not be for long, and only so that it can flare up again later with renewed strength. Of course, pendulums come in all sorts of guises, but they are all destructive to varying degrees. Some are relatively harmless. The purpose of the transurfing pendulum, for example, is to make as many people as possible think about what is really happening. It is not a question of freeing ourselves from pendulums altogether. That would hardly be possible. The main thing is not to let yourself be a puppet, to be aware in your actions, and to use these structures to your own advantage. So how can we free ourselves from their influence? Waking up and being aware of how a pendulum is trying to manipulate you and understanding what is really happening is already half the battle. The power of the pendulum's influence is inversely proportional to awareness. The pendulum only has power over you whilst you are falling asleep in waking life. Most importantly, do not get involved in destructive pendulum battles unless it serves you personally in some way. If you are in a crowd, you need to come down from the stage of action into the audience hall, look around you, and wake up. Ask yourself, what am I doing here? Am I fully aware of what's happening? Why am I here? The moment of waking up from sleeping in waking life should be absolutely clear, like the phrase used above. In this moment, I am awake and fully conscious of what I am doing and why and how I am doing it. If you maintain this level of awareness, everything will be alright. If you do not, then in any conflict, even the most minor, you will be the puppet. Things get much more difficult when something is annoying you. In this case, the clown will keep jumping about until your nerves are strained. This usually means that the pendulum has caught your attention in a snare. In order to free yourself from the pendulum, you need to become indifferent, although this can be difficult to do. For example, the neighbor's music is driving you mad. Your task is to unhook yourself from the pendulum at all costs. It is almost impossible to force yourself out of reacting. There is no point in trying to suppress your emotions. Instead, turn your attention to something else. Try listening to your own music, not too loudly, but just loud enough to drown out the neighbor's music. Think of other ways to distract yourself. If you manage to occupy your thoughts with something else, the neighbors will gradually mellow out. The same principle applies in other situations too. If the clown is dancing, your attention has been caught in some kind of snare. You have been caught up in the pendulum's game, whose goal is to increase the energy of conflict. In order to free yourself from the snare, you have to shift your attention. Generally speaking, things are not that bad. Nothing will happen to spite you as long as you aren't sleeping in waking life. You might think that all the above sounds quite ridiculous. It's not easy getting used to the idea that certain entities can control you. Whether you accept this knowledge or not is a matter of personal choice. You don't have to believe it. Simply observe and then draw your own conclusions. That is a brief summary of the concept of transurfing. If in the process of working with the transurfing principles you come across something you don't understand, you can always refer to the source material, the book in 5 volumes, Transurfing Realities. And that is the first part of the Transurfing book. I hope you enjoyed it. Yes, indeed. I hope you enjoyed it. So, the reason why I wanted to actually share this particular book and the message in it is because it's clear. You don't need to be you don't need to have any specific knowledge in order to put this stuff into practice. All you really have to do is understand how it works and then practice it. Now, there's a few points where there's many things you can actually literally do to make this process a lot easier for yourselves, and this is where I wanted to go with the whole shebang. And that's why I leave those EFT points up there, the chakras, the vocal toning, so you see the chakras and the relation to the sound, the note. So those who are musicians, you can actually understand how music truly does open all the chakras, and the correct way to say chakra is chakra. So please just start saying it correctly. Don't follow the ignorant Westerners who think it's hip to say chakra. It's just fucking wrong. Accept it, learn it, and pronounce it correctly, for fuck's sakes. It really does piss me off, because it's just like saying, carpaccio. It's carpaccio. Goddamn pronounce shit in the correct way for the language. And it's not Porsche, it's Porsche. Yeah, that's right. So hey Azza, what's up? So I'm being very funny. Jesus, Azza. Woo! 9 months. Holy fuck. Thank you so much, buddy. You are so... I don't even know how to do it. I've been trying to figure out how to subscribe to people for more than 1 month, and I still haven't figured it out. It's pretty pathetic. This is how techno-stupid I am. But the reason why I wanted to share this is, A, they don't have an audiobook, and I know a lot of people don't like to read. I love reading, and it's good for me to read stuff out loud, because it helps me in bettering my diction in English, because it's difficult when you are from another country. And I started learning English very young, because I think I was, 16? I think I was 16, 17. But I don't actually remember. That's horrible. I might have been 14. But anyway, it's been a long time. But in reality, because we were translating all the time from Italian to English, it wasn't really good learning. When you learn a language, you should just learn the language in its language, and that's it. Otherwise, you slow down the process of learning, because your brain has to constantly translate. And it creates, they found with studies that it's just not the best way to learn a language. So anyway, the best way is full immersion. In English is very much like that, because it's so full of exceptions, and it's really difficult to learn on books. German you can learn better because there's lots of grammar. It's like Latin, structure, very, very, very structured. And French is very, very close to Italian, so we have more tenses than they do. So for us, all those tenses are not really quite as daunting, and. But anyway, going back to the book itself, I love reading, and I just figure a lot of people haven't read that book. And if you like to read, pick it up. It's really worth reading. I'll put the title in the description later. Um, he is very clear. I like the way he explains things. I've read a lot of these books, and some of them are just so redundant and so confusing. Even when you do understand this stuff and you actually are able to do it yourself, you know, for people who are able to do this stuff, reading about this is kind of like either it jogs your memory on stuff that you may have temporarily forgotten, or you literally live through whatever they're explaining, because in a lot of cases, we do share similar experiences, and then obviously, they all have a little bit of particular differences, which makes it interesting, obviously. To me, anyway. I like different. I like learning, right? So it's. But I also wanted to share it because a lot of people who come for readings and all this stuff and want you to tell them about their future, it's just so fucked up. The fact that people think that we can possibly go in and see your future. We aren't God, no matter how great of a clairvoyant and all these bullshit people want to claim they are. The truth that A, you can all do it. B, the more you do it, the better you'll become at getting the right timeline, whatever. But the thing is, the expectation that you would go to someone else to ask them for your future is just so stupid. You are basically giving your power in the hands of someone else. It's very different going to someone to say, oh, you know what, I think this. Would you mind seeing as well, and seeing what it is I can do right now to get where I want to be. But when someone comes in and says, oh, I just want to see my future, now your future can be anything you want it to be. So the premise is just wrong, and I refuse to do readings like that. I turn people down now because I am so tired of people who are putting their power out in the hands of someone else. It's like, guys, you are the co-creator here. Understand this. I mean, the thing I can help you with is actually taking your power back, doing simple things that you can you can do every day. It's just so easy. It doesn't have to be rocket science. And the rocket science anyway, it's not that all that people think it is. just thinking there. The flat earthers. You know that. It made me laugh actually, the part about Einstein, because Einstein was such a crook as well, and but that's another story. I just thought it was really funny. And I do have this big book on Einstein that I bought a long time ago, and I never read it. It makes me laugh that I never quite wasted time with the bullshit. I unknowingly, instinctively knew it was all a bunch of lies, and so I never quite looked into it. I guess I never wasted too much time. It's kind of awesome. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you are interested in learning about that stuff, the flat earth, and actually, the science that shows that it ain't a globe. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry for the shock. And I realize a lot of you will have cognitive dissonance where you think, oh no, I believe it is. Well, it's only because you've been brainwashed to think it is. But, if you go and check out Eric Dubay or ODD TV, and if you want, I'm in groups, you can join and you can learn. Um, there's one that likes to debate, so if you like to debate, it's quite huge, and you can go in there and just debate. I love it, actually. I personally don't really like debating. I find it kind of pointless. I like to listen um, to things if they have a point and stuff, but I don't know, debating is kind of like I don't know. I don't like all that negativity. Yeah. Yeah. It's not surprising, is it? So it's not surprising. By the way, if you wanna come on, any one of you, I have a channel where you can come on Discord and chit chat, guys. I created it on purpose so people can come on and actually be participants rather than just watch. So it's all up to you. Let me know. I'll share the link and I'll go in the channel if someone wants to. But yeah. I mean, everything he did anyway was just bullshit. And if you ever check out Gematria Effect news, that's the channel. Zach Hubbard is his name, and on Patreon he's offering his books basically for $1 each, and they're like really really well done. I mean, I've seen the first one, the second one I think is coming out. But I mean, it's nothing. It's an ebook for $1, but you're totally getting a lot of information there. And it shows like all these, Einstein was part of all these crooks basically. They all fucking rigged up the system. Newton, all these bastards, they all fucked it up. I studied the force of gravity. I studied this shit in school, and I was always like, even when I was doing the experiments, there was always a part of me going, it's just like, I don't know, something just doesn't, I don't see certain things. And they were bothering me. And then when I watched all this stuff about the flat earth, I was like, oh my god, it's not me. I'm not going nuts. Other people are actually observing this stuff, right? And it took me years. I mean, it's my whole life. My dad was big into the space stuff. We went to Cape Canaveral, and when I was there, I was thinking, oh, it just sounds so unreal. Because I'm a sensitive, so I can feel things, but it was my unconscious. In my conscious, it was like, oh, it seems, like, but I always had this thing bothering me. And things don't add up if you really observe things and you pay attention to the little particular things, even the way they speak. And numbers just pop up because I've always looked at numbers and I've always looked at words. I've always been observant in those things. And for me, it was always bothering me how certain things kept appearing with certain numbers. And so when I went on the gematria, and I still don't know much about it, but I am seeing the things, like whatever they're saying is like, yeah, they're right there. You cannot not see them. It's just, everybody's very worried with stuff that doesn't matter. And that's part of the pendulum. That's what he calls the pendulums anyway. It's easy to control the pendulums because that's the whole point I was talking about this, was not to get you guys to talk about flat earth. That's a whole other topic. But we can definitely talk about that anytime as well. I just think if you want to learn, go learn from those guys who have done a lot of more research in it, like they have gone deep into it. So I think they have a lot more to show. And even with the science and stuff and how they prove with their point is really, you know, it's right there in front of us anyway. Like, you know, the evidence is right there, because that's the thing about these guys, like even Einstein, all these people, they put the evidence right there, but they do it in such a way that people just don't catch it. And that's what television does. It's done in everything pretty much, right? And ASMR is a big part of it, and that's why I love ASMR. I like to, I keep learning more and more. I have to update my course soon, actually, because I want to put in extra stuff in there, but that I've learned along the way. But the thing is, it's amazing how you can truly brainwash people on a massive scale when you use all these different techniques together without them having any knowledge whatsoever of what's going on. And so they call that the pendulum. That's what he calls the pendulums. There are these external forces, and it's all about energy frequency, and it's all about where you are in your energy frequency. And if you're really vibrating low, you're in fear. and I have that picture somewhere. I'm not sure where I put it. I have to find it. I don't know if it's that one. Yeah, it's that one there. Okay, so this picture here, I'm gonna make it big for now. It shows, it's a very good picture, showing exactly how things are. And when you vibrate in the lower, the red and the orange, which is your lower two chakras, this vibration is, and even the solar plexus really, but it's basically your ego. And it's all there to keep you alive, to keep you, it's what we need in order, because we are spiritual beings and we are physical beings, and in order to find the balance and bring them in communion basically, they're completely two different sides of the mirror. So that's the two sides of the mirror he was talking about, right? Everybody talks about the same thing, they just use different words and parameters to explain it. So I understand this stuff innately because I do it. Like anybody who does this innately, very all the time in everything, they'll understand it, not logically as much, maybe, especially when we're younger. But we know how to do it. It's kind of like breathing for us, right? And everybody can do it. It's just not everybody has come in with heightened sensitivity to this stuff. So when we look at books and stuff, to a lot of people who do it naturally, any book will talk to you because you have a very practical experience of this. To those people who don't have that practical experience, finding the right book is very key, I think. And so I like to share different things for that reason. Because, you may not like the voice of someone, how they speak, their accent, anything. So the more links, the more information I can share, the more chances you have to find your own path, which is ultimately what you want. And nobody can show you your path. People can only help you in sharing stuff, but you have to be the one doing the work. You have to be the one believing in yourself. And so when you are in the lower two, the red, when you feel shame, guilt, apathy, it's those are the danger zone. The grief, fear, and desire, they are the truly huge danger zones. And that's where deep state is trying to keep all the people, the sleeping souls, those we call the sheep when we want to wake them up, bah, who self-quarantined and didn't question anything that was going on, didn't do simple math, on the number that was shown from the beginning. May I say, I am not very good with percentages, but I do have a calculator and I used it, and even so, like, hello, open your eyes. But I ground myself a lot. I'm not in those two lower places anymore. In fact, I have been in the higher ones for quite a while again. However, I've been in the lower places for a long time. When my dad died, I had the abortion, I had all this shit that I was going through. So the bottom line is anybody can go there. And coming out of it is not as easy as people think, especially on your own and when you don't apply anything like EFT techniques. That's why I like them so much, because for all the people who are in those two zones, it's one of your best bets to get out of it literally on your own, because I know most people don't have money, right? That's why I share things where you can pay $1 and get a 700 plus pages book that will teach you about stuff that actually will make a difference right now in your life. And, many people don't do that. Many people ask you to subscribe to them for at least $5. So I think it's a really good deal. Go on Patreon, take that deal. Go on, the Gematria Effect News website and check it out. I do it for free because, I work privately with people when they want to work with me. I do readings, and I do this stuff for free because I never monetize on anything on any platform, just so you know. I never got to that level. Never had many followers. But that's fine because as long as you reach someone, you know, that's all that really matters in the end. That's the way I look at it. And when you look at this chart, you understand that when you are always living in those lower vibrations, you cannot think straight. You're not coming from your heart center because you're not even vibrating high enough to be there. That's more in the green part. And so, anger, as you can tell, is not the worst feeling you can have. If you want to learn a lot about this, I also know of a free course that is freaking amazing. It's like 6 hours. And some people don't like our accent, but it's really well made and there are subtitles too. And you can learn about lucid dreaming. You can learn a lot of stuff there. It's really well made. I mean, I had to read and learn a lot of stuff to put all that stuff together, and she did a great job. And she has an even bigger one that she sells, I think, on her website. But this 6.5 whatever hours, it's free. It's an amazing course. So just let me know. I share the link of it quite often, but if any of you needs links and stuff, just let me know. And the EFT course that I made, even though unfortunately there are many trolls who give poor ratings to a free course because mommy didn't teach them proper manners. You don't spit on anything that is free, that's the rule. But these trolls that are other pretend instructors, clearly, they're the deep state agents, go around and shit on anything that is good and helpful for people. Um, so the ratings are shit, but the course itself is really useful if you do it in its entirety. It's designed to make you tap, basically. It's designed to make you um, get into the rhythm of it, and also to give you so many different links so that you will find your own um, way to go. So it's not designed to get you to see my teaching skills so that you buy the second course like those free courses were originally designed for. I actually just made it because I wanted people to get some help and I didn't have any other platform to do it on. And, obviously has every good thing you do in the world of sheep. It backfires on you, right? And goes and ruins your teacher's rating. Now I don't give a shit because I'm looking for an alternative platform, the one that allows people to give you shit rating on a free course. So I don't want to be on platforms where they have all these ratings, especially if it's free. To me is so crazy, and every instructor I see there has gone through the same thing. So unless of course they're deep state, those are always the ones who'll do the best. It's like the skimpy streamers who dumb you down and tap into your desire, which is, as you can tell, is very low frequency. All that um, sexual stuff, it's very low frequency when you and I'm not talking about natural relationships here. I'm talking about people who are obsessed with sexual stuff and are vibrating always at a very low frequency, players and all those guys, all the pedivores, all those people like Hillary who went around, killing children and eating them and trying to hide all of that. Her and her posses, all these people, they vibrate very low. So that's why also when you're vibrating very low, you will see demons, you will believe in Satan, all this stuff that doesn't exist. It only exists in the world of those who allow this to come into play, just like he talks about, right? So the mirror is actually the the it's not the reality. So the outer world, that's a whole point here. The outer world is not your reality. The outer world is actually just a reflection of the image. that you have inside. So whatever your point of view is, that's the image. Whatever your mind and your heart perceives and feels is what comes into actual reality. And that's the image. That's not. So the wording is very confusing for that, because we are speaking of reality has the tangible stuff when that's not the real thing, but we perceive it as the real thing. And that's where finding a balance between your spirit and your physical body, becomes tricky, because if you don't understand that very concept, you know, and that's why they were able to fool the whole world into believing that the world is round and it's a perfect round ball. And it goes against every single principle of physics, of real principle of physics that we can observe and reproduce. And all these guys like Eric Dubay and ODD, they have shown the science. Like Eric Dubay wrote books on this stuff, and he has a video on his channel that goes over the 200 proofs that the earth is actually flat and why. And it's really interesting. I mean, for anyone who is truly seeking truth and not just, you know, um, their own version of the truth because they need to justify the fact that they're right. If you're not one of those people, if you're just looking for the simple truth, I'd say those are good places to go. But it's what it boils down to. So whatever you perceive to be the truth can become your reality and can come into shape. And so yeah, if you say that there is a virus with 99.8% recovery rate, it's 99.8. It's huge. It's almost 100% recovery rate, guys. And if you perceive that a virus like that was justified into putting the whole world of healthy people in self-quarantine and then forced quarantine for no good reason whatsoever, so it was an unjustified imposed quarantine, which makes it unlawful, by the way. Again, it's perception. They managed to they basically used these laws of transurfing, or however you want to refer to it. They used these things. They used the fact that they knew by putting everybody into fear, one of the lowest frequencies, they would go into flight or fight, and they would be unable to think. They would go into playing with the pendulums. That's what everybody who fell for this hoax did. So don't feel stupid. Most people did fall for this, and the reason is you're all brainwashed. None of you is living a really full life. None of you is coming from a conscious perspective. Anybody who is a sheep and thought there was ever a dangerous virus out there is a sheep. Just so you know, accept it. Okay? You are a sleeping soul if you thought that. And the only reason you thought that is because, just like the only reason why you all think the earth is round is because you've been brainwashed to think that, against all the evidence and your instincts that were telling you the opposite. So, it's sad that people feel guilty because of this, because you shouldn't. Who should feel guilty are those who fooled you into believing these lies. And those people, beings, because they're not human, they are already doomed anyway, and they have already lost, energetically speaking. Now the earth is just aligning, because if you notice in the chapter as well, he was talking about the fact that how the law of the mirror works is that you need to, in order to change the outer world, you need to change the way you look at it. You need to change your image, right? And then the thing though is that the image is not gonna appear right away. It's gonna appear like in a developing photo where the image appears slowly. So at first it will look like nothing is changing. But you need to hold that image anyway, because if you give in to saying, oh, see, it's not working, then it'll stop working and it'll give you that image. We always get what we ask. What we ask unconsciously is far more potent than what we ask consciously. And this is the reason why. When we ask unconsciously, the unconscious is part of our lower parts, the ego. And the ego is associated with survival. And if you see, the ego is the yellow, the orange, and the red. Okay? We need that to survive in the three-dimensional matrix, also known as 3D, which is what we have been living on the earth for a long, long time. Right now, the earth has moved already, it's already happened, in fifth. So, what is happening? Those who weren't able to change their bodies to vibrate higher, to go into 5D, they either passed away or they're gonna pass away. And there is no death, there's just a change in energy frequency. So in our 3D world, we do perceive that as death. And also because they've brainwashed us to believe all that, which again goes all with the flat earth and the round earth and all that bullshit. It's a big, long discussion on how basically all these hoaxes were put together so that they would make you believe that you are powerless. You are not a magnificent being who is here to manifest beautiful life, not work a 9-to-5 shitty job to make nothing and allow the 0.0000001% of evil bastards who have been hurting the whole earth to take all your fucking money. And, the dollar vigilante is great and talks about this shit as well. Go check him out. The bottom line is, we're not here to live this shitty life. Animals are not here to be eaten by us and hunted either. Just so you know, the correlation is right there. And what's happening to humans right now has been done to the animals for a long time, and all these so-called humans, which I've called subhumans, because they weren't living at a human level. To live at a human level, you have to live humanely, and when you live off of the pain and flesh of others, you're not really living humanely. You're keeping your body as a graveyard, like it or not. Nobody wants to die so that you can eat them. Okay? We all want to live. Animals are here for their own reason. And that's part of going into the fifth dimension. People are learning that your suffering makes me suffer. We are all connected. And that's part of the moving from the 3D to the 5D. And a lot of angels, a lot of people who are just here to help did die, and that didn't mean that they weren't ready to go in fifth. They just made pacts. And that's how they would help and raise the vibration. Now, I don't understand how death of someone good can possibly help you, that sacrifice. I just don't clue into that stuff myself. But it's what it seems to be all the time. So, okay, I am letting it go. I'm not being suckered into by the pendulum. Sorry, I don't understand it, but I'm only human. So, what do you expect? I try and embrace things as they are, however. And yes, it's a good point. You need death to have life. Yes, it's the opposite. Just for me, because I'm a healer, I just always want to heal. And also, I was stuck into feeling that pain of the death and stuff, and that prevented me from seeing that there is no real death. It's just a change in energy. So, and that's why probably it helps, actually. It's because they're going into a higher vibrational state once they go into their energy more than physical. It's just natural. That's why we appear physical, because we vibrate lower. So it's The answer is right there. I'm not willing to see it sometimes, I guess, eh? I'm only human. Most of the times, anyway. Unless I'm floating around. I think that's why most of the times I just float around. I really don't enjoy the body as much as other people do. I feel tied down sometimes. I love it more now. I have a way better relationship, but just like most empath and second wave volunteers, they never felt quite good in their bodies. It's kind of like first and second wave, I think. They were never quite happy. The younger generations are way more happy in their body, I think, than us. But I'm sure it's still hard for them because anyone who is more used to having the freedom of being higher frequency, floating around and stuff like that, having a body makes it dense. That's the best way to describe it, I guess. You feel dense. But anyway, ultimately, you want to go up in the frequency, and as you can see, once you become more neutral, you have willingness, acceptance, that all part of the, I am loved, and you have to love yourself in order to love others, and all that good stuff. So how can you love yourself when you feel shame or guilt, or grief or fear? When you have desire, usually it's because you're craving something, so you have a lack. Usually it's trying to compensate for a feeling of lack that you have. And a lot of people who have problems with food, I know I used to be one of those. It's not just hormonal imbalances, because women, when we get time of the month, our hormones go nuts usually when we're young, especially, and we don't eat properly, because let me add that if you eat a lot of sugary stuff, refined sugar is one of the worst drugs on the planet and destroys your brain, but also creates all kinds of imbalances in your hormones. So it's horrible, and it's very addictive, right? So when you have a lot of trauma, for example, you can go for those things, because people with a lot of trauma don't realize they have the trauma, and then they try and compensate for that stuff. And you know that's why I tell people to use EFT techniques, because they are like the best bet that one can possibly have to get out of that stuff on their own. And you do it at your own pace. And if you feel shitty, you can just feel shitty. You don't have to fake like you're feeling great, because that's actually hurting you more. When people tell you, "Oh, just get over it," they're actually hurting you more. There is a process that needs to be followed in order to get over whatever grievances that you have. And even if you just broke a nail and that's a huge problem for you, yes, I've had serious problems in my life, but I also have broken nails and they hurt like a bitch. So allow yourself to feel whatever it is you feel, and know that when other people, we've all done it, when other people tell you, "Oh, just get over it, that's not a real problem," they're being bitchy to you more because they are going through their own shit. Okay, so allow yourself to be where you're at. You need to see where you're at, you need to honor it, embrace it, and erase it. That's how the process is. And sometimes you stay angry. I stayed angry for a long time. And anger can still come up sometimes. I mean, when you have a lifetime of, you know, bad experiences, you will have many events that can bother you. And when you work on some events, you can flatten a lot of other events that are similar to the event that caused the problem. So it depends on which event you hit and how that event relate to all the others. So quite often you work on 2 or 3 events and then the whole thing is gone. So don't feel desperate. The important thing is to start. You have to take that first step. You have to start learning the process and educating yourself. And I understand a lot of people don't like to read, so I do try and create different content so that you can all learn the stuff you need to learn and hear it from other sources as well. And some of them do have audiobooks, so when they do, I'll let you know and you can just go get the audiobook. But if they don't, then I can just make something up with my funny accent, and you can just listen to it in that way. So the higher you go with your energy frequency, when you see enlightenment at the top, okay, that's when you see, if you've ever been around a real guru, they actually vibrate really, really high. And when you're around people like that, you just feel in peace. And they literally affect, the higher you are, the more people around you in a radius you'll be able to affect positively. So when you're around even narcissists, you will still be able to affect them positively. And that is the trick with energy, is a lot of people who came here to help the earth go into fifth and so go into way higher frequencies, have been suckered into the lower frequencies instead, because, well, a lot of these volunteers apparently were never in a human body before. So there is a learning curve there, guys. Because when you come in the earth, apparently, and it's true for what I've seen, you don't remember shit of all your previous lifetimes, of everything you've learned. You just don't remember anything. That's part of the trick. It's part of the learning, the experience. So we came here, I'll say we because I am part of that. We came here to help the earth go up in fifth, and we came here to do our job. We chose to do that. And as part of, there's always, just like life and death, there's give and take, and we are learning our own lessons. And by doing this, by coming to the earth, apparently, you get to go high up a lot faster than if you didn't. So the trade-off is, it's extremely hard, but there's a good trade-off in the end if you stick it out. The thing is, a lot of volunteers came back and they found it was so shocking. Like, the vibration is so low, so dense, so difficult, so much hatred, so much of all those lower vibrations, that is very traumatic for souls who have been in a whole different loving environment, free to roam around, not, being taken down by these pendulum forces and all these bullshits. Like, they will never be part of that stuff that was described in the chapter. And so they have a hard time relating to this. And then what happens is, the dark forces, or lower frequency forces, is the same thing. So the devil is like right there, 0. It's like fucking the lowest vibration ever. And that's why, you can do all kind of bad shit. Like, look, guilt, evil, you see how in that chart is showing, basically, it's like this chart over here, like I have my finger there trying to show it. You see the evil is like, where is my finger now? I disappeared. But it's like right there in the red zone. You have to be a participant in order for that stuff to show up in your life. And you have to pay attention to it. So pay attention to it from a non-heart-based perspective. So what is the key, basically, to going up in frequency is, obviously, surround yourself with people who are higher frequency. Would be kind of intelligent if you can. However, many of us don't have a choice. And so, your best weapon is to start using EFT techniques and Reiki and vocal toning and music and art, and put yourself constantly in those higher frequencies where you are tapping into your love, in your joy. And one of the best ways is actually to be thankful for what you do have. So find a little thing that you have in your life that brings you joy. Focus on that thing. And as you tap on your karate chop point, for example, you can tap anytime, by the way. When you listen to someone reading out a book, when you listen to anything, you can tap anytime. It's your choice. The more you do it, the better it will be for you, especially in the beginning. And you start tapping on your karate chop point, and you start going through whatever it is that you feel when you think about this thing that brings you so much joy. Where do you feel this joy? How does it feel? Does it have a color? Does it have a taste, a sound? Do you see something? Anything. A texture? Use all your senses. The more of your senses you use, the more you will be able to evoke the feeling as real right now, which is what you need to do in order to then replicate it in other things and make it real in other things. And as you do this and you feel this joy, you feel this feeling, you become very familiar with it. And then you program yourself and you just say, from this moment forward, whenever I'm going through anything that is difficult, word it in the way that works for you. But the concept is that from this moment forward, whenever you feel in in a state of uneasiness, you can just start tapping on your karate chop point, and you will start automatically feeling that you are in tune with yourself and your heart, the environment, you're at peace, and you're ready to receive all the wonderful gifts that the universe has in store for you. And you focus on that more and more, and each time you feel uneasy, you start tapping on your karate chop point. And if that feeling of uneasiness doesn't go, which, a lot of times, especially if you have unresolved past trauma from childhood, my experiences with that is that it takes a little bit of time usually, especially when you work on it by yourself. And a lot of us who need the help don't have the money for it, so a reality check, right? So most likely a lot of you will be working on this on your own. As of course you start coming on the stream, we can work on it together, and that's fine. I would say just use whatever state you're feeling in and allow your lower self, your ego side, your inner child, however you want to call it. Allow that part of you that is hurt, confused, wants to repeat the same old patterns that no longer serve you today. Allow that stuff to come out and don't judge it or judge it. But as you judge it, tap through it and just say, I'm judging this. I'm feeling this and I'm judging it and I'm really upset about it, and speak your own truth without any filtering. You don't have to be nice guy, nice girl. You can just be yourself. How you exactly feel, let that part of you speak out. And when you judge it, let the other part that judges it speak out. So there's all these parts of us that come out, and once we find a way to make them all work together, so we're not trying to eliminate a part of us, we're just trying to make them all work together. Every part of you is there because it's a part of you that is needed in order to get the job done. And the universe puts shit in front of you for a reason. So you can keep blaming the universe and everybody else for all the crap that is going on in your life today. We have all done it and we all do it at some point. But the moment you stop doing that is the moment you'll come out of swinging along with the pendulums. That's what he calls the pendulums. That's what I call coming into your own consciousness. And in order to play with the pendulum, you have to be a part of the, game. If you take yourself out and you just become the observer, you just see what's happening, but you're not participating. That's when things start going your way, because you start focusing on the things that you do want to achieve in your life, not the things that you don't want. And you know that we're all very good at saying what we don't want, but when someone asks us, what exactly do you want? In how much detail can you go? And how much of that detail comes from your heart center, so your soul, your higher self, and how much of that detail comes from your lower self, Yellow, orange, red. That's a lower self we absolutely need, but it's about using it correctly to achieve what your higher self is here to do. Once you do that, that's when things start rolling in your favor, and it doesn't take that much work at that point. Don't feel bad wherever you are, or feel bad. But when you do feel bad and you are expressing negative feelings, that's when you want to tap. Make no mistakes. A lot of us have tapped for hours on our karate chop point. At various levels of intensity, even though you don't really need to press that much. You don't even need to constantly tap, you can just touch and breathe, or you can even do it mentally. So for those people who suffer of some, physical pain, whatever, you don't have to physically do this. You just have to literally kick back, relax, and visualize it. And it will work just as well. You can also sit there and actually look someone else tap on their points, and it will still work on you, believe it or not. So there's many ways you can do things. And if you need ideas, just please reach out. Just like I say in my course, and all these trolls who give shitty reviews, none of them reached out. None of them did any of that was asked for. They were just trolls who wanted to give shit reviews. But if they did reach out, I could have helped them. But, I guess they would rather be right or feel that they're right than actually do the things they need to do. So a lot of those people who are trolls is because they're vibrating very low and misery wants company and they want to drag everybody with them. So what is the solution for people like that? This is one of the things I do all the time. When people send you shitty energy, and this is the pendulum, okay? They send you shitty energy. You can do a few things. One is buy into their bullshit and reply. The second is literally spell it out for them and say, thank you, but I do not accept your energy. I'm sending it right back as you send it to me. So it's like a mirror. And the only thing I will add is love and light. And that's it. That's all you need to do. When someone tries to curse you and someone tries to do bad shit to you, you just need to do that. That's it. And you're done. You are taking yourself out. It's the same thing if you have karma with someone and you want to get rid of it very easily. You have to forgive yourself, because usually when we're mad at others, we're really mad at ourselves. You have to forgive yourself for having let someone like that in your life, unwittingly, however you word things for yourself, putting yourself down. Go right ahead and do all of that. Just tap as you do it. Whenever you have anything negative to say, in any circumstance, start tapping on your karate chop point. and watch your life change before your very eyes as you change nothing else about yourself and what you do. Proven. I stand by this 100%. Anybody who uses tapping in every single circumstance that arises that is not pleasant will have a huge leap forward in whatever it is they want to achieve, just simply by applying this little thing, tapping on your karate chop point. That's it. Then you start tapping through the other points. But the main point is learn that. It's now called side of the hand. I still call it karate chop because it's quite clear where it is, the karate chop point. I think most people know, right? Even if you haven't watched Bruce Lee. So, I hope you're starting to understand how all of this insanity works. It's not really insanity at all. It's only insane to those who have followed the regular, the world is round bullshit. And hence, you're just slaves here to be slaves and pay taxes. And by the way, if you go on Lifting the Lead channel, their Article 61 from the Magna Carta actually shows that everything the governments have done in the world so far has been against the welfare of the people. So all governments actually who took part in this hoax have been traitors and as sovereign of the land, we have a right and a duty to stop them. Just so you know. So it's not about going out and doing like the Antifa and all those fake protesters who were paid by Soros actually and has been shown have done, going out destroying private property and stuff. I mean, none of us are behind all of that, and none of us ever will excuse any act like that. What we're talking about here is simply, for the governments to be asking for taxes and all this stuff is actually not legal. And even Scuba Dracula talks about this and shows it for Canada, for those of you who live in Canada. But there's lots of disinformation, and that's what a lot of, the flat earthers and stuff are about as well. They literally go deep into a lot of things that people overlook because this kind of knowledge is being taken away on purpose and hidden to keep everybody enslaved and thinking that, the government, just so you know, the word government comes from govern, ment, and ment come from mentis, and that's I think it's mentis in Latin anyway, but it's mente in Italian, and it's the modern Latin. Just like French, all these languages in Spanish, they are from Romance languages, so they all have a basis, a same basis, and it means mind. So they want to control your mind. That's what government is. Like every word they use, the Gematria guy, Zachary, he goes over a lot of this stuff, and he does a really great job of this. I just want to say, I mean, I share a lot of stuff that is actually valuable and will cost you nothing. And I do it because I have had a lot of monetary issues myself. I've always been poor monetarily because, for various reasons, but I've never had jobs that were paying much. And when I had the chance, I just decided that selling my soul for money wasn't what I wanted to do, so I didn't take them. It was definitely a choice also, but part of my life also I was sick and I was fighting. I was exactly going through what Dolores Cannon actually describes this in her book called The Three Waves of Volunteers. If you haven't checked her out, go check her out. She's very, very interesting. I actually came to know about her through Brian Scott, and because he was reading her books out, parts of her books, to his audience to talk about different points. And thanks to him, I got to know about her, and I knew about him because my colleague Mark Stubbles, I make courses online with, actually shared them with me. So you see how things come around, right? Anyway, when I started listening to this lady, and then I eventually bought three of her books, that I'm still reading, by the way, because I always read a bunch of books at the same time. Yes, a lot of us do that. Depends on the mood, I mean, okay? But basically, she talks about these three waves of volunteers and how, the first ones would be like around my mom's age, or, a little older anyway than my age. So I'm 46 right now, so they would be more, like my mom is in her 70s. Um, those were like the first volunteers who came and who really didn't want to be here. They tried to kill themselves and blah until they learned why they were here. Because the kicker is that, all of us are like master manifestors, so that's why a lot of us are able to manifest shit that we really want easily. Unless, unlike with money, for example, I am able to manifest money if I really, really want to, but I've had such a bad relationship with money since I was a child that that's why I was never able to manifest the money. And it's not about what you know, it's about who you know in this matrix, they say, but it's not true. It's really about what your basic programming is. And that's the unconscious. That's the lower self as well, in a way. So it's what you learned as a process when you were a kid by watching those around you, and also your makeup and how you react to it. It's a combination of things. But your makeup is not something you asked for. I mean, you asked for it before you came to the earth, apparently, but um, it's not something you created, or whatever. It's just what you came with. So don't feel guilty. That's the whole thing. Is I always dislike when people talk about this stuff because they always make it sound like it's you wanting it. This, it's your unconscious that is attracting this shitty situation in your current life. It's not you consciously wanting this. So I want to always make that very clear with people. Take away that guilt, because as you see, guilt is very low frequency. So anytime someone tries to feel you guilty or shame, you know that you want to get the fuck away from those people. It's, and again, sometimes we do hurt others, and so they want us to feel guilty and shameful, and yes, they are justified, I guess, if you want, but you know that's how you create karma. So even if you're justified, if you actually just start tapping on how you feel instead of going to the person and, shitting on the person back, even though they deserve it, if you actually tap through that and go through the motion without doing it, that's how you actually release the karma. So I just want to share stuff that actually is able to make your life better now, not in 300 years when you've mastered all of this shit. No, you don't need to master all of this shit. You just need to learn how to tap on your karate chop point at this point. And I am not kidding you. And when you come for a reading, I am more than happy to give readings to people. But understand that readings are not me looking into your future and how your future is going to be. And I always make sure people know that. The readings are there to see what's right now in your life and what it is that you may want to pay attention to so that you can get where you want to be. And it's a help because sometimes by ourselves we have a harder time seeing into things. However, if those readings are not done from a heart-based perspective, and the reader is trying to be the best reader in the world and give you the best precise answers and all that shit, that's not heart-based. So it's ego-based, lower, the three lower colors there. And that's how you access a lot of more demonic and bullshit stuff that you don't need. That's where a lot of people who call themselves witches, for example, and talk about demons and all this shit, that's where they come from. It's their ego. While the ones who are witches who actually do it correctly, because again, witch is like one of those things that they have prosecuted them for nothing. Those are the ones who are heart based and really are able to help you. And They don't have to be witches, by the way. This is however someone wants to. It's cultural, right? Some cultures have more that, some cultures have other things. I don't really care. I'm really. I see more similarities than differences, and I can't say it was always that way before, in the sense that when I was more caught into the 3D bullshit, because I had to learn how it felt to be there. And that's partially why all these light beings who have come here to learn have chosen such difficult situations, is because they actually needed to learn in order to have a frame of reference. And apparently some of them decided to, because when you don't have a real frame of reference, the mind needs that in order to um, decode the 3D with the higher D's dimensions. If you don't have any frame of reference, you can get really lost, and that's where a lot of those volunteers basically were living aimlessly, and they weren't really doing what they were supposed to and all that stuff. So I know I have been there. I know I have been doing my job pretty much since I was a kid. However, I know I've had times in my life where I was very suicidal, even though I never really meant it, but I was always thinking about it. It was always in the back of my mind. I wanted out. I just wanted out. I would say it out loud. And I was never really suicidal, but you do feel like that because you just don't know how to cope with all this meanness, all this shitty. It's like, why am I here? This is fucking hell. Hell is on earth. And then when I watched what they did to the animals, oh my goodness, that was harsh. That's why I went vegan right there, because in spite of how addicted I was, because I just couldn't. And a lot of people had to go through all those emotions, because if you don't, how can you understand? You know, you don't understand why people can be so evil. It's because they're just vibrating very low. All those pedivores, all those people, believe it or not, they haven't been around for that much long. You guys who are on the light side, you guys who are here spreading the truth on whatever level, you are great manifestors. You are really old souls. You are the ones that have the power. But because you forgot all this stuff, you don't have it right now. You're not using it. You still have it, you're just not using it. You have all this potential. And so that's why you're part of the pendulum, is because you have all this potential that hasn't been used. And the other side that has no potential, because all the pedivores, all those people who have done those horrible acts, they are very, very low dense frequency. They're not brilliant, they're not smart, they're not powerful. The devil is only powerful because you allow it to be. Okay? Understand this concept. Because when you do understand this in your heart, is when things will start going in the right direction on the outer world. The reality is that because of all the volunteers that have awakened and are constantly awakening more and more, it's already happened. We're already in fifth. It has happened a few months ago. We all felt it. We all felt better. Those who didn't feel better is because they were sleeping, because they're in a trance. And they're in a trance because they're not present in their body. If you tapped on your karate chop point all the time, whenever you watch a movie, whenever you watch anything, whenever you read the paper, whenever you study, before you go to a sport event, before you hang out with your friends, before you do any, tap whatever, your stress is out. And then you can also tap in positivity. And from now on, tonight is gonna be a great night, and you can just go over it. When you speak things, they become more real, because It's the next level. You think and then you speak, When you feel it, that's when it manifests a lot faster. So if you're gonna pay attention to something, pay attention to the good stuff, because then that's what's gonna show up in your life. So if you want to help those people who are still asleep, I do call them sheep. Not always, but I do call them sheep because you want to get their attention somehow. And people pay attention to stuff that threaten them. So calling someone a sheep threatens them, makes them feel lesser of, and will attract their attention to you. But if you don't then give love and, positivity, then all you're doing is hurting them. So the best way to really affect others is to bring yourself to high frequency levels. And the higher you are, the more powerful in affecting others positively you will be. That's why you want to go as close to enlightenment as you can. That's why you want to keep tapping into your high vibration in the heart chakra. And obviously, when you are thankful for what you have, when you're grateful, you cannot feel any other feeling. So it's one of the easiest way to actually get out of the pendulum. So tapping, feeling grateful, allowing yourself to be where you are, even going down to the point of loving it. That's true acceptance. Go through whatever steps it is you need to go through, and it will be different for each and every one. And you will discover that's your journey. That's where nobody can do the job for you. When you work with a coach privately or when we work as a group is obviously less focused on just yours, but it still works very well. It's called borrowing benefits. And I always say to people to go and check out the EFTuniverse.com website, because Dr. Dawson Church does an amazing job, has also a free mini manual there, and I have all this information in the free EFT course I did, so that's also why I did that. But it's so much information for free that he put out, and his heart coherence meditation, the Eco-Meditation he called, is amazing. And the heart math did the heart coherence studies, so he took those studies, he talks about it in his books, so he does write down the references. You can go and check out all this stuff and all the studies, the clinical trials. They have truly shown in real life what was happening in the people's brain. And Dr. Joe Dispenza also has been doing a lot of this work. So all these people work together and they've done an amazing job. And it's, some people like Donna Eden as well. I'm not really into her. I'm sorry. I really don't like her. It's not personal. It's just I never met her, so I can't have anything personal toward her. That's why I never bring her up, so, but guys, I mean, by any means, if you feel attracted, go for it. For me, it's not my thing. I'll just stop there. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything, right? And I never was. I tried, and I never liked, and so I stopped. But if you feel attracted to it, please go and check her out. I like to, just talk about her because even Dr. Dawson Church has worked with them and her husband, so I'm not saying they didn't do anything valuable. I just don't like a lot of things myself. But, we all have our own limits, and I just don't really want people to say no to something because of my own limits. In fact, I invite you to go and check it out. A lot of people, find it useful. I find other things much more valuable for me and how I am. But it could just be a phase, right, as well, of my life. So always try things, just because even like I tried it, for example. I didn't just say no, I did try it. And every now and then I go back and try it again, by the way, because I'm that kind of a person. When I have blockages towards stuff, I I accept that I have blockages, and I go, okay, maybe it's justified, maybe not. And I go back and forth, and investigate in different times. So you do what feels right for you. Follow your instinct. Don't allow other people's instinct to, you know, take away your own instincts. You always have to listen to your own guts. It's very important. And nobody knows best. You know best for yourself. You are the center of your world. You are the center of your reality. You choose. You need to first, the first duty you have is toward yourself. If you're not happy yourself, you cannot be happy around anybody else. Nobody can make you happy. Happiness is an inside job indeed. And the pendulums, are the things that, those events that only going to affect us because we're not present. And the reason why we're not present is because a lot of us have unresolved trauma from when we were kids and we learned wrong behaviors. So don't feel guilty, or feel guilty, but tap as you feel guilty about it, because then as you tap, you're working through the problem. Well, when you just talk about something and you bitch about it without tapping, you are actually reinforcing the problem. When you tap, you're working through it and getting rid of it, believe it or not. And sometimes it takes us time and sometimes it doesn't. So I don't like to tell people that, you're gonna have a magic moment. Yeah, they do happen and they can happen at any time. In fact, Dolores Cannon talks about this. She, with her method, a lot of times you just go one session and you're done. So, hey, I am not opposed to that, right? At all. However, if you don't have a chance to either get trained in that or find someone who can help you and you can't pay, apply the tapping, A lot of people also with the tapping have had one, you know, time wonder. So, and if you can afford to have a coach and stuff, maybe have a look at that too, because coaches are not people, it's not like going to a psychiatrist or a psychologist. Coaches, what they do is client centered. So they're not above you. They're not people who are there to tell you how it is, which is really arrogant anyway, a way of doing it, kind of obtuse if you ask me. And I would never go to anyone like that myself because, again, it's taken away your own personal power, right? But that's how Western shit care is based on, because it's all about, money is in treating, not curing. So obviously they want to control you and make you believe that you're not a great manifestor, that your health doesn't um, get affected by the way you think and the way you feel, which is actually what affects it the most. So they totally, everything they do is based on sub-science anyway and trying to control you. And obviously, like just like we saw by this, latest hoax where they blocked the whole world for a virus that never probably even existed, but according to their numbers, um, has 99.8% recovery rate, so it's not really a problem at all. The yearly flu has killed more people, just so you know. So it's just ridiculous, But again, it's the power of suggestion, the power of, using fear and using all this propaganda all together, and also coming from a place where people think, they have authority. They think Western shitcare is based on science. It's not. It's based on sub-science at best and heavy-duty propaganda. And if you read books like The Gene in Your Genes, Dr. Dawson Church shows this, and he gives you tons of references. So I don't bother doing that because it's not really my job. I'm not here to show you, how this and that. I'm just letting you know and giving you sources where you can go and do your own homework, basically, which is something you should do, especially if you are interested in learning more about this stuff and finding the truth, which is the only thing that really has interested me my whole life. I don't care about being right, I care about finding the truth and then bettering the life because of that, of myself and anyone around me. I couldn't give a shit about being right. Being right is for idiots, you know? If people are interested in that, it's because they're ego based. I'm interested in unity. I'm interested in people learning that, what you feel and what the next person and the next animal and the plant, everything in our environment is affecting us. That's what being human means, that we actually feel everything around us. We are all feeling each other, whether you're conscious of it or not. And when you understand that your actions, whether someone is watching you or not, when you do something to hurt someone else and you knowingly do that, you're really just hurting yourself. When you understand this, that's where you're starting to go high up in those frequencies, and you're becoming aware of things. That's where you start seeing more similarities with people than differences and beings of any kind. That's when you understand that, you know we're not here to hurt each other and control each other. We're here to help each other grow and to have a good life. All of us, not just the 0.0000001% of low frequency, evil, wannabe, satanic retards who have been running the world, and Kill Bill is definitely one of them. And don't make any mistakes, RFK, all these people are all in the same boats. The Masons, the church, and the Jamatra guy shows you this with no doubt anyway. Not that, you know, we don't have other people proving this, but he's one of those who have done the best work, in my opinion, because he really goes into symbolism and he's done a lot of research on this, and it's good. And, you know, once you have the knowledge and you understand this, that's where you can be very effective in helping others. So, help yourself first. Learn to vibrate higher. Learn to emit that love, the care, and whatever else toward yourself. And then others will also feel it, and that's how you inspire other people as well. When you go attack people who are already in an ego-based state, you're not going to inspire them, you're gonna actually push them more down. So we all do it at some point. Nobody's perfect unless you're an enlightened being, and even so, I want to argue that, unless you're not human, most likely you will go a little back down every now and then until, we're solid into that fifth dimension where then we're just gonna stay high up, because that's what it is all about. We are in that fifth dimension already energetically. However, in the outer world, we're just, getting into it, and it's gonna take a little bit of time for things to just solidify up there. And as it's happening, people are learning to take care of each other, to be kind to each other, to honor each other's differences, because it's important. That's how we grow. Otherwise, it would be fucking boring, wouldn't it? So, it's not just for the adventurers. I am a creature of habit, but come on, people, right? We want to have a little bit of variety too. I know I'm always interested in um, people who are different. I always find it eye-opening, and I like debates in that way, because I don't like to debate. I don't like to argue with people, but debating, I guess it's different. It's more civil, but it's where you learn other people's point of view, and the mind works best when it's open anyway. So if you sit back and relax and try to allow yourself to come out of your point of view, that's where you have actual expansion, and that's where you learn. And we're not always in that position to wanting to do that. Sometimes we just want to fucking be in our own little shitstorm and go through it, and that's fine too. That's when I tap, you know. Like, I haven't cried because my uncle died on Monday. Yeah, my godfather passed away. That's right, After being between life and death for quite a while, he suffered like a dog. And no, it wasn't corona bullshit. No, it was other viruses that he got in the hospital. And he got in there because, he was so scared about this hoax of a virus, and he had all these ideas, and then he smoked as well because, remember, you have to have a lot of conditions. He didn't take the vitamins, he didn't do the right things, obviously, because Italian hospitals are extremely corrupted, and Dr. Shiva does talk about this as well. So if you haven't checked him out, go check him out. Dr. Shiva for Senate is his website. He's got tons of information there for free. And probably if you're in Massachusetts, you may want to go and vote for him because he's actually one of the good guys. He also gives away, if you donate to his campaign and stuff, he'll give you a free book that he wrote, which is very, very important in teaching you the systems of the body. And he's done an amazing work. I checked it out. He's really worth it. And actually, like, if I had the money, I would take both his courses because they're super inexpensive in reality for what those courses go for, and they're super, super important because I learned a lot about Ayurveda, this and that, but I have never gone to school and just focused on this stuff. So I'm mostly self-taught, and there's lots of things that I don't know. Just it's always the case with everybody anyway. So for me, I always love to take courses. It's always a good way to, the other doctor that I like is Dr. Robert Morse. He has courses online as well on iridology if you are interested. Again, I know a lot about that stuff, but I always want to learn more. And so we never stop learning, and it's important that we do that. It's important we take the time to do that. But I lost my train of thought now. I do that often, don't I? I had a point. I did have a point, and then it'll come back to me in like 2 hours, and I'll go, oh yeah, right, I forgot about that. No, I don't write it down, usually. I do sometimes. If it's something difficult to remember, then I will write it down. But anyway, I think there's lots of information out there, and it's all about using the resources and, accepting where you're at and what you need in that moment. And when other people try to make you feel like you're lesser than they are and all this stuff, it's them. When we talk about people vibrating at a lower vibration, it doesn't mean that they're lower in importance. They're not. No, it's because we need a reference. That's how we work in this 3D to understand stuff. Our brain needs to have parameters like that. But that doesn't mean that you're less valuable or whatever. We were all at that stage where these satanists, pedivores, wannabes, who kill and torture and eat children and try to hide it, like Epstein on his Epstein Island and all this bullshit, you know. I just I don't justify any of it, obviously, but if it helps you in finding a balance in between, in removing yourself from being part of the pendulum, it's really easy to hate people who do such evil stuff, okay? And I have watched on beat shoot frazzle drip, whatever was there. And I did have a hard time that night, even though it wasn't as hard of a time as I would have had many years ago. Because I use tapping and I use all kinds of stuff. But I did watch it, and as I was watching it, I lit a candle and I was sending healing, love and light to that kid, and even to the perpetrators, saying, I hope that moving forward you're not gonna ever do shit like this again. I do think that people, like that need to be held accountable for what they've done. And I call them people loosely because they're some kind of beings, but they're not human, that's for sure. It's just, you know, when we buy into the hatred and we really go down that road, we're only participating in more shit. And that's why I don't go there. And that's why when I see myself going there, I remove myself and I work on it. And the faster you do that, the quicker you're gonna remove the problem and the less time it'll have to settle inside of you deeply. It's not what you want. So if you are going through hard times, like right now a lot of people are, just tap through your points regularly. It's like brushing your teeth. You just do it all the time. And it will make a huge difference in your life. The more you tap in the beginning, the more of a habit you create, the easier it will become, the more powerful, effective, and quick in giving you result and changing your life around. And all the courses I put out were not designed to give you knowledge in terms of abstract knowledge. They are designed to get you to tap, to actually do it. And I will work on them again as I learned a lot of other things, and also, you know, as you move through technology and you learn shit, you get better at it. So I also have a way better mic right now, so I can probably, you know, redo some stuff. But so you know, once again, the crackling in the background is actually fireplace ASMR because I love it, just like I love the birds and the water, and so I do that. It's not some sound bullshit like some of the idiots who gave a bad review on the free EFT course wrote. And of course, those idiots never do reply to the reply you give them because I bet, you know, after you put them in their place a little, ever so lovingly, you know, but you tell them it was ASMR. Now, if you're ignorant of what ASMR is, you should go and learn instead of giving a shitty review on a course that is free and you could just simply archive if you don't like without, you know, interfering and without basically making it hard for other students who may need a free course because not everybody is a trust fund baby, you know, and some people really need the help and just don't even have $1. So you're basically screwing over those people because you're a CUNT right now and you need to be, you know, an ass with other people and make them feel as shitty as you feel. But that's the bottom line, you know? So I I look at people like that and I can easily go into that mode myself. And then what? You have to ask yourself, what are you obtaining from it, right? So rather than do that, I still tell them what I have to tell them. I still send them love and light, and I do mean it. I'm definitely sending them love and light. They fucking need it. If you behave like an asshole, you need it more than anybody else. So thinking in those terms can really help you get out of that. But you cannot get out of that until you are at a point where, you know, when you start feeling angry and you have pride and all that stuff, is a lot better than when you are in the lower vibration. If you are shameful, guilty, all that stuff, you cannot possibly allow other people to be assholes because you're basically projecting your own assholeness back and forth. So you have to first take out yourself out of that vibration and then you can be proactive about it. So once you start getting into that neutral zone, that's when you'll start really be able to, you know, take anyone who is vibrating lower and actually help them in that way. So whenever you vibrate easily at a lower vibration, it's just a part of you is so vibrating there. So for me, I know that's why for me it's really easy to go into certain vibrations if I allow myself to, because um, there are still certain things in my past that I haven't been able to work on, and most likely I haven't hit them because I haven't worked on absolutely everything. There was a lot, right? But it's not that much really compared to how I was before. I mean, people with complex PTSD get triggered by pretty much anything. It's unbelievable. And people think you're crazy. People think you're You have multiple personality disorder, and sometimes yeah, it's true too. I mean, a lot of us actually, most people do have that in a way. It's just different parts of us, not cooperating and going against each other. So when you have cognitive dissonance, that's when it happens basically. It's like kind of like when someone shows you that the earth is flat and there is no fucking doubt about it, but because of this, and people still want to believe in the globe. That's cognitive dissonance, because when you are in front of evidence and you still want to believe in the lie, that's what, you know, it's called. And it happens all the time, and that creates a separation of identities where there is a part of you that does see the evidence and the other part is still, trapped. So it's just a matter of allowing those parts to be and then working them back together with each other. That's really, and you do it with tapping. It's really, really amazing. And obviously, being in heart coherence, doing the eco-meditation or stuff that puts you in heart coherence when you wake up, before you go to bed regularly, every couple of hours, our brain, 8 to 10, that's how it goes, sort of thing. I think they're called circadian, I always forget those big words, rhythms. Anyway, every couple of hours, our brain downloads. Have those 5 minutes when you feel tired and you want to go for a jolt of coffee to wake yourself up, is usually when your brain is downloading all the stuff you learned in those 2 hours, whatever. So if you, instead of drinking a cup of coffee or eating something bad for you, you just start tapping and you allow yourself to relax, you actually make the process easier. And in the same time, when you tap on your karate chop point, you are allowing your energy frequency to go back to what's supposed to be. The polarity of your body gets readjusted to its natural state. So then, plus minus, that's a polarity of the energy, It's always plus minus, life and death kind of thing. Opposites. They both need to be there. That's how our reality works. You allow that to go naturally back to what's supposed to be, and you're literally giving that needed break to yourself, your system, and everything. And it's not only amazing to boost your immune system, because it has a direct effect on your adrenal glands, which govern your lymphatic system. And your lymphatic system is the reason why you have allergies, the reason why you have eczema, psoriasis, you have pimples, you are not able to process fats properly, even though we're not really supposed to have animal fats anyway. But when you're healthy, you're able to process shit better because your body is healthier. But if your lymphatic system is clogged, you're gonna have all kinds of fucking problems, including rhinitis. So you need to clean it out, and one of the best ways is to eat fruit and veggies, alkaline fruit especially, and tap, because tap is energy healing. Chemistry is always lower. Alright, so eating something will have a good effect on your body, but energy healing will act a lot faster, because it's all about basically sending a signal to the body. So energy moves faster. It's not a brainer, right? So fucking use both of them. It's not that hard. That's what I always say. And swearing is good sometimes, by the way. So you churchgoers who have been taught a bunch of lies know that swearing is actually God's will. It's just how you do it. So I just want to open your eyes to a lot of things that are pretty obvious, but are not often pointed out correctly, and it takes a long time to put things together sometimes, because you have to get bits and pieces here and there. And the gematria, Zachary has done a great job on the gematria for that. That's why I truly appreciate people like him, because I think, yeah, we need people like that who go into great detail and are able to then explain to others and make it really, easy to follow. So I hope it's helping you. I hope it can help those who are looking for answers and feel lonely and whatever, and if you feel suicidal, and you don't have anyone else to reach, even if you do have other people to reach, but when you feel like that, instead of being by yourself, reach out to people like me, reach out to people who are streaming this stuff, and we're always happy to talk to people. We're always happy to share our experiences, because when you communicate with others, when you have people you can hang out with, people who can understand you, you will not have the same desire to go and end your life. You're here for a reason, and it's not to kill yourself. It's not to hurt others. It's to be the best version of yourself while being with others. It's not anymore about the ego. The fifth dimension is about the collective. It's about, being part of this community where everyone is important and everyone is there for each other. So it's a lot different than the 3D world we have been facing up until now. And obviously, there's gonna be a little bit of chaos going on because when we are changing through the different dimensions, I mean, it's obvious it's gonna happen. However, remember, it doesn't have to be as bad as many people want to see it to be. Again, the outer world is the image, it's not the reality. So make your image clear and positive in what you want it to be. And that's how the reality will become. And the more we do it together as a collective, the more we can turn this thing around faster and without going through a lot of pain. So for all of you who feel down and low, no, we all feel in that way. I have cried myself because my uncle passed away. Even though I know there is no death and I know all this stuff, but it's normal because our physical self, where the pain is held in our body, needs to process it. And you have to understand that while your spirit is very strong and doesn't need the rest, our body needs to sleep, needs to repair itself, and also needs more time to let go of the pain. Okay? So when you cry, it's one of the ways that you can let the pain out. Some people act out, some people yell, some people will go play a sport. Do what you need to do and do it understanding that it's okay. If you're a guy and you're crying, it's okay. It doesn't make you a pussy. Okay? So, a pussycat, I'm talking about, just to be clear. Meow. So, just allow yourself to be. And if you don't want to allow yourself to be, that's fine. Just tap on it. Anytime you feel negative, just tap on it. And anytime you feel positive, you can also tap on it if you wish to. In fact, it just fortifies it even more. Self-acceptance, self-love, it's the first step toward anything that goes into higher vibration. And when you do that, then you can accept others. And loving yourself where you are will be the next step, and it just all comes in different times and ways. And everybody is different. And for those who don't feel a lot in their body, you can also tap on that. Because a lot of people I've encountered in my life would go, how do you know this? Like, how can you feel? They would feel like they weren't good enough because they weren't overly sensitive like I was. And I would look at them and go, do you know how much of a curse this is? Do you know it's a fucking pain in the ass? Because there's two sides to the equation, right? Always. And, I couldn't do your job because of how I am, and they look at it. It's how you look at things. So just because you don't feel certain things, I would ask myself, what is the purpose of that? What job do I need to do that requires me not to be as sensitive in this way? Because there is a reason for it. We're all here for different reasons. And what you do is not more or less important than what I do. And that is the main concept to understand is this new earth era, is that we're all important and we all are playing a very important part in this. And if you're here right now, you chose to be here, and you chose to be here in one of the hardest but also most exciting times to be in. It's insane change, never seen ever before. So, you know what? Look at it as wow, and my uncle, by the way, that's what I wanted to touch. He was buried Friday. And Friday, I didn't know this, by the way, I knew after. And I was very sick. I was going through my usual non-migraine thing where I puked the whole day, nothing, but, you know, literally, I would drink some water and then, it'd come out. And then it's the whole thing where, for those of you who have had migraines, I don't have migraines anymore, but because I did hypnosis with my Mark, did hypnosis on me, and so the migraines don't come, and the symptoms don't really come anymore often. But I was talking about it 1 or 2 days before, and every time I talk about it, then the day after it happens. So every now and then, I guess I want to bring it back in my life or something, just to not forget how shitty you can feel, so that I can feel thankful of the fact that I don't have this shit anymore in my life. But anyway, it also happens when big things are going on and I'm affected on an emotional level and unconscious. So I didn't know he was being buried. Obviously, my aunt, my cousin, the daughter, everybody must have been super happy about this because he was such a good guy. And I'm saying super happy in a sarcastic way. So I feel their pain, right? And I was really weepy. I was really like feeling miserable, but I wasn't as miserable as I would have been in the past. I wasn't as desperate or anything. I was observing it. It's the change. When you change your energy frequency, the way you deal with things is very different. So even though I was extremely sick until like 4:30 in the afternoon, I didn't eat anything. I was just like, totally fasting, basically, because I couldn't. And I was lying in bed the whole time, trying to sleep and have like, I was having lucid dreaming basically. And I was puking at intervals, always very timed out intervals. That's the other thing that is interesting, you know. Always, always surprised me how very timed out these intervals in the puking and all. It was like a ritual almost, and I wasn't doing it myself. It was pretty funny. So I'm just going along with the motion, and what was different was that I wasn't cursing at my body. I wasn't saying, fuck this body, I'm so sick of it, I was actually thanking my body. And I wasn't doing it on purpose, it was unconscious. I was actually lucid dreaming, so. And then when I would come back in more conscious, the conscious reality, I was like, thank you, body, for, putting up with all this shit. Really, it's unbelievable. And how much, even though I was sick for so long, how much better I felt in reality throughout the whole process. I didn't really cry much. I wept very small. But before, when I was going through this, I was like, man, every other, was cry because you are in so much pain. And yet, I wasn't feeling the pain as much. I wasn't, because I was in a better state overall. I really, really, um, this man was like the father I wanted to have in my life. My dad was not very patient, and I loved him very much, don't get me wrong, but he was not patient. He was kind of a heavy duty narc in many ways, and he was really not. He never wanted us, he never wanted to spend time with us. It was just like my uncle was the father I wanted to have. When I was a kid, I would dream about him being my dad. So even though I haven't talked to him much, because unfortunately, you know, our relatives have their own bullshit and the children are always entangled in the bullshit. So I just removed myself from the situation because I was like, I don't need this in my life. I had enough shit happen to me and I don't need more. But I always cared and I always, knew stuff through my mom and whatever. So at a distance, I had this deep connection with him, and he always was trying to reach out here and there. I just, I was always hoping he would find his way out of this and understand that, he could heal, he could allow his body to heal, but, it wasn't his time. There is a bigger reason for why this happened. And so being aware of everything and all these concepts, being aware of the fact that there is no death, being aware of the fact that, yeah, he died, and now my aunt is alone effectively in the 3D, but she's not really. And it's probably because she needs to learn something out of it. And the same thing for my cousin and all this stuff. Because she was supposed to get married in September of this year, and instead, they went to a funeral, a few months before. So, quite a different scenario of what these people had pictured for themselves. I look at it and I was kidding around saying, oh yeah, I'm sure, that he's up there playing bocce with my dad right now because, bocce is from where I'm from and it's a big game there. And I even have the bocce still, actually. I really like it. And sure enough, when there was, in Italy, we used to have a lot of bad weather and we would get a lot of storms. And so we would have thunders, and I always, always, always scared of thunders. Always, because it's a loud noise, right? All of a sudden. And it was like, blah, like really bad. And when that would happen, my dad, to make me relax, he would tell me, and my brother, but my brother wasn't really scared of it. He would say, oh, it's just God, he's playing bocce, you know? So it would make me laugh. And so that was our joke when then I was older. Oh yeah, with the kids, anyone who was scared, even my dogs when they were scared, I would just tell them, oh, it's just, God is playing bocce. And so ever since my dad died and the rare times in Vancouver we have this, it's really rare here. So rare. I would say, oh, it's dad playing bocce up there now, with all the other dead relatives. So I said it again, and sure enough, on the day on Friday, when he was buried, early morning, which is, I think it's probably like around the time they were there in church and stuff, it was thundering. It was like for a little short time it did that. It was just like, are you shitting me? Like they were totally sending me a message there. And you can believe whatever you want, but it was obvious they were sending a message, and the messages do come through. You just have to be open to them. And it was very, very little in terms of time, but it was there and it was powerful and it made me laugh. So in spite of everything, the point is that you can always look at things in many different ways. And when you're vibrating lower, you're gonna look at them from a lower point of view. So even the best of things can turn into shit. And you will constantly invite more shit in your life as you are vibrating lower. And you shouldn't feel guilty for that. You should just understand how it works. And then the only thing really there is to do is to work through that in the easiest way possible, which is tapping. Because with tapping, you can stay in the negative as long as you need to. It will not hurt you as long as you are tapping on your points. And those are the meridian of the body. The same meridian that acupressure uses. And there are many ways you can, touch them throughout the body. So, there are many ways of doing acupuncture and doing acupressure, reflexology. They all work, just so you know. Whichever you're attracted to will work best for you, because instinctively we move toward the things that can help us the best. So another reason why I don't argue with people with different methodologies, I always tell them whatever works for you, go for it. Just, don't tell me what I need to do, because that's what never will work for me or anyone who is in charge of their own self. So when someone tells you you need to do this, I don't know you, but inside of me I have complete aversion to whatever comes next. It's a very bad way to formulate that. And sometimes we all do it because it's bad habits we picked up. But, I usually just tell people this is something, even when I say you should, it's still not really best wording. The best way is to say you could or you can, because it's important to give people a chance, a choice. Always give a choice. You're a sovereign of the world, of yourself. You're in charge. You're not a sheep that needs to follow in line, and even sheep are not like that, really. It's just a stupid little way subhumans have looked at animals, and that's why they treated them like shit until now. Because they've been convinced that, again, the omnivore propaganda, as I call it, along with the globe propaganda and the Saturn propaganda, because it doesn't exist in a world where you don't allow it to be. So all this evil shit is still happening because the majority of people still buy into the bullshit, basically. And our duty right now is to be patient, as the high elven wisdom girl lady was talking about as well. She's doing a great job on our site, so I like to mention her as well. She also was sharing this message. Right now, all of you people who are awakened need to allow those who are not yet to catch up, and you have to be patient with them. That's your duty right now, is to keep yourself high up and vibrating higher and allowing others to join you. So when you feel feisty and like you want to hurt them, then that's a good time to go and tap on it on your own instead. And you can also, go in front of a mirror and imagine you're talking to them. That really does work. And you can say whatever you want, and trust me, it'll work a lot better. And there I have to tell you, trust me. Trust me and go and do it. That's what I mean. Trust me enough that you will give it a chance, 2 or 3, Do things. Do things and experiment for yourself. It's always the best way to learn. Everything that is worth learning is learned by yourself. So people can share with you a lot of things, but ultimately you have to be the one understanding that you are a master creator. That's why you're here right now. And those who don't go higher vibration, because I know a lot of people are worried about that, what's going to happen, blah, blah, blah. They're just going to reincarnate. If you have other karma to work out and shit like that, you're just going to reincarnate somewhere where the vibration is matching yours, and, you can move through, but it won't be the earth. The earth is already in 5th, so basically those who are going to be in lower vibration still, they're just going to go somewhere else that matches that. And so everybody will be fine. We're all going through whatever experience we need to go through to go up in the next phase, because ultimately the Big Bang is right in the sense that that's why it's funny. They always give a little bit of truth and a lot of lies, and it's hard to see which one it is. But the Big Bang, really, the good part of it is that, yeah, it's true. We all come from source. We all come from the same source of love and wisdom and everything. And then, God wanted to learn and experience, and so all of us are God. That's why we all feel each other. That's why, animals, everything is all made the same. Things, rocks, we all vibrate at something. And when you understand this, then your outlook of things does start changing, and the way you behave and feel. So, investigate and start your journey if you haven't yet. And if you're in the middle of it, we all are, enjoy it. And if you feel lonely, reach out and join our groups, and dare to be different, dare to break away from what's commonly accepted, and go be yourself a little bit. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to give a thumbs up and, to subscribe, hit the bell if you want to know when I'm online, and, reach out um, if you need help with anything. Yes, I'm on Patreon as well. I don't have anyone there yet, but, feel free to join. And again, don't be shy. You don't have to donate. I always accept donations. I always say thank you when people, you know, obviously, but it's not something you need to do in order to be able to access my help and reach out to me. I have been my whole life in situations where money was always a problem. So I understand. I don't go out to eat much because if I cannot afford to, pay the tip and do the right things, I just don't go out. I'm that kind of a person. So I know how it feels. And I like cooking anyway, so it's not a big deal for me in the grand scheme of things. I mean, but, nobody likes to feel constricted, right? However, don't feel however you want to feel. So I'm not telling you how to feel. I'm just saying to you that if you are in a position where you cannot even give $1, it's fine. You don't have to, okay? To be part of this community. You do have to not be a troll. That's the only requirement, really. But other than that, anybody is welcome, and we're here to be a part of the change together, and not just to talk about shit and not follow through. I am someone who believes in doing things, not just empty words bullshit. That's exactly the opposite. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'll upload it to the other channel because I think it's valuable for the channel where I do exclusively tarot readings. But I hope you guys will start tapping. That's the biggest hope I have for most people in the world right now, is the more people who start tapping, the faster we'll turn this around, because honestly, it's one of the easiest things everybody can do. So my goal is to create the biggest tapping community ever. Not just my community, I'm saying in the world, to have as many people tapping as possible and sharing, this knowledge with as many people as possible so that they can have the best life. So if transurfing is what speaks out to you, go buy his book. That's that book was transurfing in 78 days, I believe. That's what the title is, and it's completely worth it. It's, especially for people who have no knowledge of this stuff. I think it's really well written. A lot of men will love it because it's written by a man and he's very logical about things, But I think a lot of women will love it as well. I'm not saying women are not logical. In fact, logic is bullshit. But I'm just saying, sometimes when you speak too woo-woo for some men, they just call it woo-woo stuff, right? So, anyway, I hope you liked it, and we'll be back in a little bit. I'm gonna take a break because even I get tired of talking, and ultimately, I think I've pretty much said everything I wanted to anyway, even when I lost my point there for a bit. But it's all for a reason. Nothing happens, for no reason. When I do come back, I wanted to do a little reading again, general reading, so we'll see where that is going. And I also wanted to check with the Flat Earth group if they eventually decided to do something, or if we were supposed to meet up and do stuff together. We are trying to organize stuff, so I will find out when that happens, and then I'll probably stream it on my channels anyway, so And by the way, I am on D Live. I also do put a lot of stuff on BeatShoot and Library as well, because as you know, YouTube likes to, cancel, shadow ban channels like this, because obviously we go against their deep state agenda, and face crack does the same thing. So I do have other channels, and they're all called in the same way, so it's easy to find. But so I have started doing that when they raised my first channel, because I exposed Butar for being deep state, which he is, by the way. But and again, he's just fulfilling his duty, right? I hope he realizes that being a posse for JFK is not the answer, considering they are pro-vaccine, pro-mandatory vaccine, which is not their choice. What we shoot in our body, it's our fucking choice. So they have compromised everybody's immune system with this forced and unlawful quarantine, which is unjustified, and that's why it's unlawful. And because 99.8% recovery rate does not justify a world quarantine, that's for sure. And now we're in phase two, where it's perceived war going on. Phase three will be blaming all those protesters who were mostly Antifa Soros paid, and we know this. We have tons of proof of this. We have actually people, because they've given people like Black Lives Matter as being also infiltrated, and they've given black people a bad name again by going out and pretending that they were the black people doing all this bad shit to private businesses and stuff. And a lot of these people filmed them, and a lot of them weren't even black. So that's the funny part, like police was actually filmed and photographed dropping off these bricks that they used to break into this. So it's all psyops, guys. All that violence has nothing to do with real protesters, people who are trying to spread the truth. They don't go out doing anything of it. None of us is behind this shit. We are completely opposed to it. Why would I want to go out and destroy private businesses? That's what this PSYOP was all about. It's about taking down small businesses. So if you are on Facebook, you want to start looking at other options. Like Float is one of them, and Scuba Dracula talks about this stuff. There's lots of people who will tell you, all the alternatives. Also, there is one, it's called Signal, you can use instead of using WhatsApp, which is owned by FaceCrack or Facebook. And YouTube, can there is DTube that is good, DLive. There are a lot of alternatives, and the faster you move away from using this mainstream deep state propaganda um, things that are controlled by deep state, the faster you do that. The dollar vigilante also talks about this and gives you a lot of alternatives. So do go and check out these sites, and do go and get their information. The dollar vigilante talks a lot about monetary stuff, which I'm not very versed in, but he talks about um, monetary things you can do to get yourself out of this shitty situation. And there's lots of help out there in many regards. So do take the time to do it. And just so you know, tomorrow is Monday, and most likely Donald Trump, who is not on our side, unfortunately, most likely, is going to declare martial law in the states, and he will basically, try and con- like it's the next phase. Basically, that's why they did this. They were trying to create this inflated, perception that there is violence going around, and so you need to be protected. When in reality, they're all psyops created by those in power. And the kicker is that we pay policemen with our tax dollars, and they don't protect us. They protect the 0.00001% who doesn't pay them, because they don't pay taxes, in case you didn't know. Like, Amazon doesn't pay fucking taxes. You get taxed on everything you work for, but investors, I mean, if you don't see how fucked up this system is, guys, you need to go and look into it. The dollar vigilante is very good at it. At showing you the stuff. So just understand that the lesser of us who participate and give money to companies now like Amazon, all these companies that enslave people, pay them very little, and basically are stand to gain the most out of this unlawful quarantine and ultimately break down on of the free market, because there was never a free market. I mean, the free market is the black market, like the dollar vigilante talks about, but a lot of us have never been a part of it because we were all brainwashed in school, right, to be good little citizens. Well, we are sovereigns, we're not citizens, and it's very important that you go check out, the Magna Carta and the um, Bill 61, and what our true rights are in regards to everything, the earth and everything that has been going on, and how to take our freedom back. Freedom is taken, is never given, so you have to be willing to stand up and do the right thing, and that does not include going out and using bricks dropped off by policemen who should stop this stuff, and to go and get and use those bricks to destroy property. That's not the way we do things. We go out, we educate people, and we create peace, and we take down the 0.0001% who thinks it's okay for them to take all our money, to take our children, murder them, kill them, and eat them, and hide it, and make it look like it's other people like us doing it. It's all them. They incited all the wars in the world, they have done all this shit, and they made it look like it was us. It's always them. They also convinced everybody we are omnivores. They made everybody participant in the animal slaughters that have been going on throughout the world, which is the biggest Holocaust, shameful shit that has been happening. And there's lots of people who have done a lot of work. Check out Dominion, check out, all these forks over knives, earthlings, speciesisms. There's tons of information out there on all this. Know that people like Greta and all those, idiots, environmentalists, they're just psyops as well, by the way. And, just go check out. Go check out sites that are actually worth checking out, and understand that it's all happening for a bigger reason. Don't buy into the bullshit. Don't be swing around with the pendulums. And more than anything, breathe. And don't wear a mask. Because the mask is a satanic ritual. When you wear the mask, you are willingly taking part to a satanic ritual. Just so you know. Peace. And we'll talk soon. And the next time, if someone wants to come on, we have Discord. You can come and talk on Discord live, and we can have a good conversation. Ciao, Belly.